Hi, and welcome to the Phins podcast, the podcast that gets you closer to the game than the sheds. I'm Mitch, and if you bleed red, white and gold, you're in the right place. Every week, right off the back of the game day, we're breaking down everything Dolphins, what clicked, what didn't, and everything in between. No fluff, no filter, just real talk about our boys from Ready. So whether you caught the game live, watched it back, or you're relying on us to tell you what happened, strap in, because we're fanatics here. This is Phins Up. Let's get into it. Well, here we are, Phins fans. We're officially in the finals. We cannot, from this point now onwards, not make the top 8. And the battle is won. So whose home is it? It's definitely ours, especially in this year. We have put a strike completely through the Broncos, although it didn't start off the way that we wanted, being 24-0 after, what was, 25 minutes, essentially. It was pretty rough. We actually kept the Broncos, mostly scoreless in the second half. It was pretty much all us. So from the 35th minute onwards, the Broncos didn't score a single try. They only got their next points through a bit of a controversial penalty, I would say. But let's break it down. So 40-32 is the end result. Like I mentioned, 24 minutes, the Broncos, 24 minutes in, the Broncos are up 24-0. It was a blistering start, and it was a bit of all over the place. Our execution was a bit off. Defensively, we were making poor decisions. Ezra Mam goes through twice within 6 minutes, and scores a double. So there's some things to look at there when defending in those particular kind of environments. So I believe one was even, one of the Ezra Mam tries out of his 3 was actually off a scrum play that was just Ezra Mam didn't even, pass the ball. He just basically dummied and went straight through a hole. And for a small guy, he is strong. Like I'll give him credit. Ezra Mam makes some, tough breaks when he does run the ball. So, but and then it was still the Broncos for the next 2 tries as well. Dean Mariner, Billy Walters coming back for the Broncos was one of the best things that could happen for them, and they need him in the squad next year. Like there is no doubt that he is one of the core players for that Broncos team to be able to play well. But then, Billy Walters got through some lazy defense from Katoa, unfortunately. And then, Mariner backing up on the inside. Then there's a mess of a play later on, and Xavier Wilson crosses over with just some sheer luck. There's this bobble. A kick goes through from Mam again, his involvement, and the ball's kind of bobbled around different times. The ref points to the spot and calls it a try. Upon several replays, it probably looks like there's a hand in there somewhere, but Broncos have all the momentum, and this is the 20th minute. Xavier Wilson gets that try, and then the Broncos again get down our end, and they look like they're really about to cross over again. And then one of their players, I think is Jaden Hunt, might be his name, drops the ball, and Hamiso just picks it up and glides down the field, barely breaks a sweat. You can see the cover defense coming across. Tries their best to get across to him, but he barely gets out of second gear. Like he just flows down the field. He has, the first probably 10 meters, he's really accelerating into it. Pretty much just dodging his way around the first initial defenders that are near him. But then, he just makes the break down the field. Asako converts it, and at that point it's 6-24, and it's still looking like a pretty rough game. But then we get down the Broncos end again in the 27th minute, and Lemuelu just goes straight through a hole, almost gets tackled right before the line, but the defender slips off, and yeah, he's able to essentially just crawl his way over and put the ball down. Um, yeah, another 5 minutes later, we're kind of trying a few plays. We then do this back line out to our right, and yeah, Bostock draws and passes and puts Jermaine Asako in over the corner. Asako still has some work to do to get that try, but yeah, he steps in field and gets it down. Um, then the Broncos come down our end a couple of minutes later, and they score again through Ezra Mam, and I believe this was the off the scrum. So it was actually the kickoff from the previous try from Asako goes down to Gilbert, and Gilbert spills it, and then yeah, the Broncos do a midfield scrum, and yeah, feeds the ball out to Ezra Mam, and yeah, I believe he gets it on first receiver, and yeah, just goes straight through. He still, like I said, has some work to do. Get the ball down. There was three defenders on him in the end, and yeah, he still does well to get the ball down. Um, and at that point in the game, I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, that kind of sucks because we just built all this momentum, and then the Broncos have just shattered it right there. It was, the 35th minute they've scored. And it's always good going into the sheds with the last try or at least leading. So it was fairly heartbreaking when they scored again. But then we get down the other end of the field, we start throwing some wild passes, and then it kind of comes out the back to Cobbo. Cobbo pops it up to Herbie Farnworth, who just splits right through this lazy Broncos defense, and that's probably the summary of the season for the Broncos. Is they seem to be all chasing the ball, and no one's actually keeping a defensive line. So Herbie just goes straight through, and you can see Billy Walters blowing up, essentially saying like, "Where are you guys doing?" Like they didn't even try to tackle him. But that was good. That led us into halftime. Essentially, I believe within a converted try, it was um, it was their 5 tries to our 4 at that stage. All conversions made at that point by both sides. Um, so yeah, probably the big takeaway from the first half is that I think it was like 52 points were scored in the first half, and I'm sitting there going, "This is terrible." Like, yeah, it's entertaining. Don't get me wrong, um, but that amount of points in a single half of football is just actually insane. Now, we saw last week with if you watch the Cowboys and the Roosters game, we actually equaled this battle for Brisbane equaled the highest amount of scores, like points scored in a single half. And it was tit for tat. Like we went in at halftime down. But you could clearly tell that whenever we got within striking distance, we were the better team. A lot of the Broncos tries weren't because of, set plays that got them through. Ezra Mam 3 times broke through the line just by poor defense from our side. The Dean Mariner try, lazy defense again, was just a Billy Walters breaks through, offloads, and those aren't set plays. Those are just, you make your own luck, essentially. And the same with the Xavier Willison try. That try for the Broncos was again just some scrappy, the kick went through, multiple people trying to grab at the ball, and it just happened to be Johnny on the spot, Xavier Willison. But this leads us into halftime, and we go in with a fair amount of confidence. We've got the game closer, so we're essentially going to start the second half with a mentality that is okay. We just we're within one converted try. We just need to level it, and then we can work on breaking them down even further. So then we come into the second half. There's a bit of back and forth, and then Lemuelu. It's this play. It's the exact same play that we saw, I believe, against the Warriors several weeks ago. It's first receiver to Katoa. Nikorima runs through, and Katoa puts over a little chip kick. And it worked perfectly against the Warriors. At this particular point, the ball actually bounces away from Nikorima, and thankfully, Lemuelu was just still in play, and he grabs the ball and puts it down. Like, because if Connolly was just, a bit lazy, having a breather, he doesn't get that try if he's not backing that up. Because if the ball bounced into Nikorima's hands, he scores. Um, there was still a defender there, so it was pretty close, but Nikorima's speed got him a bit, past the defender. So, but then yeah, Lemuelu is just there. He gets a double for this particular game, and it was just amazing. We then have, a little bit more back and forth for a while. There's then the controversial penalty, that is the Billy Walters, goes out of dummy half, and he gets really close to the line, and he throws a dummy to Ezra Mam, and Mam gets taken out on suspicion, which is a funny definition because then they essentially call it a penalty. But if he was a decoy runner and he ran into the defensive line, there's no problems with that. So it's just interesting that if a player's within vicinity that could potentially receive the ball, but Billy Walters at no point, even the bunker said, Billy Walters is not looking to pass the ball. So therefore, like, it should just be that Walters made the decision, and it looks like Mam could receive the ball, um, and he was just tackled on suspicion. So, at the end of the day, whatever, it's a penalty, but I don't feel like it's a rule that is so strict, because you see block runners go through and they make contact with the defense, and it won't even be a penalty. It can essentially just be, oh well, it's either might be a shepherd, or sometimes it does get called a shepherd. But other times you see a block player run through, make contact with defense, or the defense make the decision to tackle, and it's just play on. Um, so yeah, it just seemed a bit like, oh, let's give the Broncos a 2-point lead, so it's a bit, yeah, let's let the game be still in the balance, because it was 30 all at that point. So the Broncos moved to 32. I think we're on 30 still at that stage, and then there's still a fair bit of back and forth. Like, it's still another 9 minutes before there's another try, or so, and it's actually Hamiso who essentially goes through, competes for the ball, grabs it out of the air, competing with Walsh, and puts the ball down. He still has to, essentially beat two other defenders to get there, but he officially gets us the lead. The first time of the night gets us the lead. A very strange lead up to this point. There's actually a few HIAs that kind of come in around this stage. The game's paused multiple times around here. But yeah, then we get the conversion, and then there's back and forth again. The Broncos, they look like they're a threat, but once they get down our end, there's no real. Yeah, our defense definitely stepped up towards the end, and then there's this broken down play that essentially Katoa kicks it from the left side of our field to the right side. Bostock goes up for it, catches it, passes it back. It then comes out to Jeremy Marshall-King. Jeremy Marshall-King throws this massive ball out to Lemuelu, and Cobbo's open in the corner. So yeah, Connolly just goes in and draws and passes, and then Cobbo goes over for a try, and a much deserved try. He unfortunately got one wrong a bit earlier in the game where his leg went out. But this was a well deserved try, and it's still the 71st minute at this stage as well. So there's still a little bit of time on the clock. And Asako actually misses this conversion. So he almost had a perfect night, and he went six conversions out of his 7. Walsh barely looked like he was going to miss all night. He had 5 from 5. So, but yeah, overall at this point, you could really tell the the Broncos were deflated. They were trying to get up and about, but yeah, you could see Walsh having a sook, nearly every single time that the Dolphins got a six again, or a penalty. And Walsh not even being the captain is blowing up at the ref. I feel like if you're not the captain and you're blowing up at the ref, you need a talking to, because you're not in a position where you're allowed to speak to the ref the way that he was. Like, he was screaming at him, carrying on, and yeah, I'm sitting there going, you're not the captain, mate. You can't be carrying on like that. Like, if you want to talk to the ref, then sure, put your hand up to be a captain, but you're not the captain. Pat Carrigan is. If you've got the problem, take it to Pat Carrigan, and then he can discuss it with the ref. But yeah, it was just some childish behavior, and he's passionate. He's a superstar of the game and stuff, but he has this side where you see he gets quite carried away and quite quickly. We see it in Origin as well when he had that headbutt incident with Jerome Luai and stuff. But yeah, enough about Reece Walsh. The story is, this is now the Dolphins' home for 2026. We've beaten the Broncos, so this is now our second recorded win against them. And with the way that we've been building, it wasn't a surprise that we would win this. It's a surprise that the scoreline is the way it was. I would have thought we'd be something more like the last time we beat them, where it was like 40-6, because yeah, there weren't too many players on the Broncos team that I would give raps to. Probably the three or four that really stood out to me was Ezra Mam. With his touches, something was basically looking like it was going to happen. Billy Walters, and I would say Reece Walsh had a really good game. In terms of his impact on the game, he didn't score any tries, but every time he had the ball again, it looked like something was going to happen. In terms of our guys, our Indigenous players, being this was Indigenous round, Hamiso and Cobbo were really up for it. Like, their carries back. Hamiso's full field 90 meters untouched. Yeah, we were just working harder. In the end of it, we were working harder. Those first 24 minutes where we didn't score a single point, we looked a bit shell shocked to begin with. We barely had the ball. For the first 20 minutes, I think, yeah, we essentially had like two sets to the Broncos like 5. So yeah, it was just one of those games where if you had possession early, you scored a lot of points. But yeah, it really came down to, like, if I go through some stats here, we had the less amount of penalties. We had less ruck infringements. We had the same amount of errors. We had more missed tackles. We had more ineffective tackles. It's just our attack just seemed to be a lot better. Like, the stats weren't insanely skewed to one side. Like, it's not like the Broncos had 10 penalties that they conceded to our 4. Like, it was 6 and 4. There was 3-2 ruck infringements, and then I actually believe that those ruck infringements were them slowing the ball down to stop us from being able to play it quickly. They also had 2 inside 10 meters, so players again rushing up out of defense. But yeah, it's actually, when you look at the stats, it's not a good win in terms of stats. Yeah, there's not. We had way more run meters. So in terms of field position, we probably actually had the better field position in possession. So yeah, that's probably what most of it comes down to, is when we are putting in a kick, it's an attacking kick. And that's, again, the difference that Katoa brings to this team compared to Schneider. Like, we have someone who's kicking, and there were multiple times there where we were going up and competing for the ball. So yeah, it's a great win. Not the cleanest win that we've had. The last 2 weeks have been a bit of a, get back up to it. But yeah, Next week, we take on the Sea Eagles, and they're on their 5th straight loss as of recording this. So they lost last night to the Bunnies, I believe it was. No, they lost to the Storm, sorry, and they lost pretty hard, 42-20 against the Storm. So I'm hoping that next week we go down to Four Pines, because we only have one more home game now, but the rest of the run is good. Like we've had the last 2 weeks where it was probably the more difficult weeks to make sure we definitely get a win. So we should win. We should win against the Dragons, which we did. It was a dirty win again. We should win against the Broncos, although it's the Battle of Brisbane and they always show up for that. So it was a dirty win again. Now we should win against the Sea Eagles, although it is at their home. So it's going to be tough. I think every game from now on out, I think maybe the Eels game might be one that we can probably, definitely say that we should win. The one that probably scares us the most is the Roosters versus us, and it's at Allianz. And the way that the Roosters have been playing recently, they're the real deal. So, yeah, we'll just keep keeping on. We're in a good position now. We've pretty much secured 5th on the ladder. If it comes to it and the Sharks lose, it's probably unlikely. The Sharks have a fairly decent run home. Like they play the Dragons today as of recording. If they lose and we win next week and they lose again, then maybe we can make the top 4. But at this stage, we've secured 5th. We would play a home preliminary final, and then we would go through to, essentially like a semi-final, and then, another final again, and then the grand final. So there's still a lot of footy to be played. And the ladder position for us is actually fairly good now. We just need to clean up some of the defensive errors, and some of the general ball in hand errors. And I think we'll be good for the finals. So hopefully you've enjoyed this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the game last night, and it's going to be a cracking game next week. Hopefully we can put some points on and get another win. So I'll see you then. And that's a wrap on another episode of Phins Up. If you enjoyed the breakdown, do us a favour and hit subscribe. Drop us a review and share it with a fellow Dolphins fan. It genuinely helps more than you'd think. Do you have a hot take? Do you think we got it wrong? Discuss with us on our social media page at Phins Up Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back after the next game with a full breakdown, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Until then, stay loud, stay proud, and keep those fins up.